Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm taking a look at something ridiculously awesome. This is something I saw way back when on Twitter and got mega excited about. This right here is a Mecha Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle version of Leonardo, and this, what can I say? This has a metal frame. It's 9 inches tall. This is ridiculously beautiful. This is kind of like a metal build figure from Gundam. Honestly, the detail, the build, the workmanship, this thing is blowing my mind. Even the concept art had me like, what? But this thing right here, this is crazy. Before I say anything else, this is by Heat Boys. I'll put a link down there in the description to this item as well as to their Twitter where I saw all of this going down at first. There's more of them coming out. The whole crew is coming out, and there's a shredder too, and they have an absolutely awesome, cool mecha style. And they are mecha. This thing has a cockpit in it with a Leonardo. This thing is ridiculous. Anyway, links in the description, let's check this thing out. So now jumping into the aesthetics, and this thing right here is absolutely gorgeous. I don't even know where to start on it. First off, this is massive, and this is heavy. This comes in at 9 inches and weighs almost a full kilo, so about 870 or so. This thing is a beast, an absolute beast. It's rock solid in the hand and just looks fantastic. When you get in even closer, the detail, the paintwork, everything is phenomenal. Now, I will mention this is a pre-release sample. As far as I know, it is not fully released yet, but I am so impressed by this. I want the whole squad. They look amazing. But yeah, everything you want to see on a mecha is here. We've got armor, thrusters, nice greebles, nice detail, the color separation, if you'd even call it that, the paintwork separation on this. For example, the front shell, that has been separated into multiple colors. So it's not just the usual beige, we've got a kind of sandy beige, a light beige, and 2 shades of gold on there. If you go around to the green on this, we've got dark green and some light green and some super light green that is almost kind of grayish green white. This thing is painted so damn well, and the little details, like the little gold bits here and there, pure artistry. If that was not enough, there's nice detailing like decals all over the place, and the quality of these is perfect. They're really nice. We've got some TMNT ones all over the place, some caution ones, various little designs just to give it that really huge mecha feel. This looks absolutely gorgeous. I also threw this onto this here Gundam base from Mega House, just to give it a little bit of a sizeness to it. This is meant to be a giant robot. I'm not sure exactly what scale this is meant to be, but guessing from the included pilot figures, and yes, there is included pilot figures, I'm guessing this is meant to be in and around the 1/80th scale or 1/100th scale zone. I don't think it'd be the 1/60th scale based on the size of little Leonardo right there. So in actually giving this a bit of a measure, it is 1.5 centimeters tall. Apparently the turtles are meant to, well, be about 150 centimeters tall, which is 5 feet. So this would probably be 1/100. So let's get it beside a master grade. So there's the big old Mecha Leo on the right hand side, and there is a master grade Gundam. Just to actually give you an idea of just how absolutely massive this is. There is a high grade too, just for the general scale. Spread them out a little bit. Get them in there. So as you can see, this thing is an absolute beast. So now jumping into the accessories, and here's absolutely everything that comes inside of the box with that Mecha Leonardo, and there's ridiculous amounts of stuff in here. We've got a whole host of weaponry, and on top of that we've got a full stand, as well as some little runners which have little cut-out model kit style parts, and a whole host of adapters and bits. Let's check them all out. So first off, when it comes to the kind of features on this, I'm going to mention because I will totally forget, and speaking of forgetting, this is becoming a repeat issue for me. This thing needs batteries, and I do not have any batteries. Basically, we've got a little bit of an LED unit inside of its head. So yeah, once again, can't be and won't be checking those out. So onto the equipment now, and seeing as this is Leonardo, we might as well start off with the swords, which I will mention feel fairly hefty. So as for the swords out of the box, this is exactly what they look like. So they are inside of that scabbard. There is the other side, so these have some nice details, once again, just like we would have seen on the mecha itself, gold and black. And like I mentioned, these are nice and hefty, and it feels like the blade here is actually made of a die-cast metal. The blade is in a nice black and silver, and like I mentioned, these sound like they're made out of metal, and it seems like they might just be. Hold on, I'll clack them together in front of the mic. That's cool. So when it comes to Leo's mecha hands, or should I say manipulators, these are fully articulated. So each finger has all the articulation you'd ever need from a turtle hand, which is, I guess, a lot. When it comes to holding onto the swords, we've got a tab in the hand, holds in the hilts of the particular weapons, slap them in like so, wrap the fingers around. This is seamless, feels perfect, the grip is great, and when this has them equipped, it looks astounding. These look so good, the weight to them is nice. This is more than enough articulation and more than enough actual strength to the actual figure to hold these in whatever pose that you want. These kick ass. So when it comes to getting these swords stored aboard the actual mecha right here, we have a whole bunch of these individual little adapter segments. Big ones right here, which can be used to attach onto the scabbards. Small one right here, I'm taking a super guess, but I think that attaches, yeah, perfect. Attaches onto these, being the actual swords. And we do have hard points all over the surface of the Leo mech, like this. You can just pop that in like so, and then the sword can be stored on the hip, just like that. If you like, it also clips in, it's nice. And you're not just limited to those hard points right there, they're all over the place. We've got some on the shoulders, around back on the shell, and we've also got some hidden away. We've got some removable parts on the forearm, so we've got some hard points in there, as well as some removable segments on the sides of the legs, so you have some hard points on the side of the calves too. On top of that, we've got a whole ton of adapters, so you can stick an adapter into the shell like so, use it with that exact same adapter we're using on the waist, and you can store these up on the shell in that classic TMNT kind of way. So if you want something a little bit classic, you can do that. And if you want something incredibly new, you can just pop them into this particular adapter right here, slap that into the forearm like this for a blade style tonfa, or should I say a tonfa style blade. That is pretty kick-ass, so there's tons and tons of options when it comes to just the storage of the swords. And we've got a whole lot more in here. Let's go. So if swords were not enough, we've also got a pair of knives in here. These are quite similar to the swords, just shorter and more knifey. Again, the blades in here do feel like they may be made out of a metal. There's the tapping together. These hold in the exact same way as before, and because they hold in the exact same way, I'm not going to do them the exact same way. Let's get these in a bit of a reverse grip. So there's one back there. There is numero dos, popped in just like so, and that right there is what those will look like in a little bit of a pose. So once again, these are pretty much identical to the swords, just shorter, different shaped, but everything else is pretty much the same. We've got the same sort of attachment adapter for on these, which just pop onto the blade apparently just like so. So you can use that then to pop them into any of the hard points just like so, just using the waist once again for the example. That is pretty cool. So if that wasn't awesome enough in regard to weapons, we've also got some long-range weapons in here, so Leonardo's definitely bringing the mecha heat. So first up, we've got a big rifle. Once again, the paintwork on here is absolutely incredible. We've got some great decals all over the place, and my favorite aspect about this right here is it actually has a little functioning pump action bit in the front, so I guess this is a kind of pump action rifle. We've got these little segments up top here, and this is one of my favorite aspects of this. What we actually use with that are these, which I can only assume are kind of like, I was going to say little mutagen bottles, but considering this thing is meant to be, well, a giant mecha, these would be human-sized bottles of, I assume it's mutagen. What else would it be? This really takes me back. I used to have tons and tons of Turtles toys when I was a kid. And one thing that always stood out to me was all the kind of cool green mutagen aspects that you'd get with them. That is awesome. They slide in there, and then there, just like so. That is pretty cool. Not sure what to do, but they look kick-ass doing it. Once again, this pops into the hands in the exact same way. So just getting that hand up like that. Cracking that right on into the palm. Absolutely no issue whatsoever. Wrap the fingers around, and that looks absolutely gorgeous. So once you've got that equipped, this is what it looks like in the hands. You're able to pose this perfectly because of the awesome articulation. We've got some great shoulders which allow it to come forward, and you can mount this up against the shoulder nicely. This just looks so good. And the front, or should I say the non-triggering hand that can hold on to the grip up front, that pump action part, no bother at all. This thing looks absolutely killer, and this is one hell of a rifle. And that isn't even it. So just like we've seen thus far with this, everything can be stored on the actual mecha unit when it is not in use. So that just pops off super simply, just like so. So once again in here we do have an adapter that just pops on, just like so. Grab it onto the side of the rifle. We've got our peg. And once again that is mountable to any of the hard points. So I'm gonna pop it on up here where the sword was. Will it fit? Yeah, it fits just about on its back. I think that's a good mounting place for holding that, but you can stick it onto any of those hardpoints like we've done so far. So one of my absolute guilty mecha pleasures is dual pistols. It doesn't make any sense. Why would a giant mecha have dual pistols? Who cares? It looks awesome. Anyway, we do have 2 of these pistols in here. I like the barrel thing going on at the end here. I'm not necessarily sure what this is. It's really giving me a bit of a Metal Gear kind of SOCOM kind of vibe. But we do have an actual drum here, so I assume it's some kind of revolver-esque weapon. So that does rotate in there. We've got a nice little shiny sight segment right there. That down there, which I assume is some kind of laser sight, maybe a flashlight or something like that. But that is pretty damn awesome. And we've got 2. Popping these into the hand is the same as before. You just pop them into the tabs in the hands, close the fingers around them just like so, and these hold in perfectly once again. I have to say, this has just the right amount of awesome articulation and nice build strength to hold even the most over-the-top, ridiculous dual-wielding pistol, John Woo, Max Payne, Matrix kind of over-the-top poses. I love this. The thought of I don't know, how tall would this be? 20, 30 meter tall, massive robot jumping through the air, just shooting the shit out of things with massive pistols. That is ridiculous and an awesome thought, and this is so much fun to pose. Kudos on including dual pistols. Awesome. And just like we've seen with all of the equipment so far, we do have some adapters for popping onto these. They pop on super simply, and then you can attach these onto any hard points you want up on that mecha. Once again, looking absolutely and ridiculously gorgeous. So while working my way through the accessories, I found this right here. This is like a little pizza slice, I think, which is absolutely cute. But I will also mention this is the magnet for turning on and off the LEDs in the head, because it does have a magnetic switch. But once again, I do not have batteries for those, but if you had the batteries in there, it'd just be on and off, just like so. So up to this point, we're looking exclusively at offense, but we've also got some defense in here, which is this massive shield. Now, the one thing I absolutely adore about this right here is we have a classic looking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles logo as one of the decals on this. Just look at that. That is awesome. That is so cool. We've also got tons of other decals all over the surface too. Got some nice metallic paint in there. Flip it around, it is black on the other side. We've got some attachment points right there. We've got that little segment there, and this right here. As we've seen with everything in here, we have tons and tons of options. The first is use the whole thing as one large shield. We've got this little connector part that attaches into the middle to give us another 4mm hole. We've got this segment here, which I assume is like a typical shield connector, pops on like so. And then into the hard point on the rear of the arm. So that just pops on like this for your typical mecha shield. Now that looks damn cool right there. Just trying to squeeze that into a bit of a pose first so you can see how it can defend itself, and it can, well, defend itself very effectively. Next up, option-wise in here, we've got ourselves a little bit of a handle. I assume this works in the exact same sort of way. You can just pop it into whatever hole you like. I'm going to go with a lower one this time. There it is attached in. This, I assume, then can just be held in the hand just like so. And by the lining up of things here, I assume it's used in conjunction with that last attachment point I used, because otherwise it's not going to hold in there. So you probably have to use this and this at the one time. If that was not kick-ass enough, you can actually separate this up into 3 elements like so. That just pops off like this. Then this one pops off like this. And we've got these little segments here. Flip this around to the back, and we've got this little part that double folds out just like so with a bit of an attachment point. Once again, this can be attached to any of those hard points. So once you have the shield separated up, you've got a couple of options right here. These can be popped into, well, any hard points you want, but the ones in the manual mention the shoulders, so you can pop them up like this for a little bit of a samurai flair that looks kick-ass, or you can swap them down to the side skirts, or should I say as side skirts on the waist, just like this, just to give it a little bit more of a beefy and almost, well, I guess kind of samurai vibe too. Both of which, absolutely awesome. So the next thing in here gets me very, very, very excited. That is this little plastic model kit style runner. Now, we've got 2 of these, one in black and one in a clear green. I'm going to go with the clear green because it shows up a little better against my background here. But what we've got is a little bit of a Leonardo figure, so you can get a good idea of the scale of this particular behemoth of a mecha. You just cut them out just like so. there's an idea of the size he is in the palm of the Mecha's hand. So as you can see, Mecha's huge. And the next one that we've got on here is this one. Now this is the one I'm excited about because this is an actual little pilot for using in the Mecha. Yes, the Mecha does in fact have a cockpit, which makes me very, very happy. But the last thing I'm going to mention before we take a peek at that is this right here. This is wheels, 4 wheels. These are not for using with anything in this particular box. These are for using, well, how do you put it? It's like a collect every single one of these particular mecha robots and you will eventually be able to build a little turtle van. That is also awesome. I love it. So yes, the Leonardo mech right here is rocking a cockpit. So I'm going to have to just get these out of the way. These do not block the cockpit. It's just they'll block your view of the cockpit. And it's right there in this little segment of the shell, which is so, so cool. So there is the inside, very nicely detailed. I assume to pop in the actual Leonardo, he just pops on in just like so and sits into the seat. Of course, if you want the best effect, it's best to paint that little Leo, and then that can just rotate on in just like so. How awesome is that right there? Then close it all up, and you've got your pilot inside. And with that pilot figure, it looks like they've just thought of everything, but that isn't it all. We've also got a stand for using with this. And the best aspect about the stand and the base right here is you're actually able to open this manhole cover right here. That is pretty cool, but what's even cooler is the space inside. So that does mean you've got some extra space for holding on to, well, any of the little adapters, some of the smaller weaponry you may not have attached onto them, the pizza slice, the throwing stars that I almost forgot to mention. So we've got 4 of these throwing stars. Those can be stored in there if you're not using them. Knives, what have you, and then you just pop the top of that lid back on. Just like that right there. And they're all stored inside. Handy. So as for getting the stand set up, we've got a pair of these metal poles right here. I assume this one is for in the air poses, and this one is just for standing there. So I'm going to go with the longer one, which is this right here. We've got a little bit of a screw thread on this, which screws on into the base to make it nice and secure. Get on in there. We then have these attachment points for attaching onto this. Now, they seem to be at a slightly different angle to each other. We've got this one right here, and this one that seems to be at a little bit of a higher angle. So I'm going to go with just the... Do I want them leaning back? Yeah, go on. Let's go with the more unique angle. So leaning back a little bit. To attach them onto the stand, then we've got this little hidden butthole. You just pull this part off. There's the butthole. I'm not even going to comment on this one. And then it just attaches on like this. So a double attachment. We've got the one that goes into the hole on the back, and then it's supported from underneath. So anyway, once it is up on that stand, you can get it into whatever pose you want. Now, I will mention you're not able to change the angle of the stand. We only have 2 angles for the upper adapter part for on this. So you either have it just straight up in the air or leaning back ever so slightly. Those are the only 2 choices in here. Now, that does make sense. To have just one straight up metal shaft makes sense. This thing is over 800 grams in weight. It has a metal frame, so if you did have some kind of flexible stand, more than likely this would be a real drop risk. So this does the job and does it perfectly, and getting this into a pose feels so good, and it's about time to comment a little bit on that posability and articulation. But wait, there's more! Wow, I was actually just taking a look at what else you can do with this, and it seems like I wasn't even finished. This is the central aspect of the shield. This can actually, well, I guess I gotta take that bit out. But yeah, this can actually attach on 2 of the knives just like so. And like so, which I assume makes it into one absolutely killer throwing weapon. Or the other option is to pop off those knives. And you can store yourself a pair of shuriken on it like this. And like that. And once again, I'm not sure if this is to be a throwing weapon or if you just pop the part back in there again. And maybe mount it up on the arm for storage of those shurikens. So finally now moving into the articulation, and first off I will mention this thing is rock solid. It will not drop any pose whatsoever. That metal frame is built and built to last. It feels so good. As for some of the highlights in regard to what's going on here, because there's a lot of highlights. First off, you're able to extend its neck. That's not the highlight, by the way. The actual highlight is its mouth opens. Check that out. That is brilliant. It looks great. Its mouth opens. I like to think that it can blast a beam out of there. If that's not canon, it should be. Get it? Canon? Next up, we've got an ab crunch locking mechanism. That is this little segment right here. Just pop it out like so to get extra ab crunch. And that is nice. We have these little bits of armor that can move down like so the legs can kick up good and high. They are just mounted in at one point. There's no moving mechanism to them to slide them up and down as far as I know. So you can just get a kick like so. The next best awesome aspect about this is we've got a sliding armor part in the upper leg. How cool is that? And also when it comes to what I can only describe as barbat toes, these are individually moving. And that I like a lot. Also got a nice little bit of a shell wiggle down here, which I love. So now finally testing out the articulation using that usual pose I do to test out all the articulation at once, and this thing absolutely kills it. Now I will mention, at first I didn't do this all that well. This has definitely got some great articulation, but it's got some complex elements to it, mainly at the shoulder. But besides that, this thing can get good and low and feels rock solid with a good center of balance. I do feel the knee could bend a little bit more, but then again, I do ask for a ridiculous amount of articulation when I'm testing it out. But besides that, you're going to get pretty much every pose that you want out of this, and it's going to look kick-ass in them. When I actually got around to trying to realign the shoulders a little bit, because I felt the arms weren't going as high as I felt they could, it actually turned out that the shoulder armor is independent to the arm in the way that it moves at the shoulder. So you have to move the shoulder armor completely out of the way in order to get the arms to reach up even higher, which it can do no problem. This thing has a great ab crunch to the side and to the front, and the only thing that was limiting it from getting really low was the bend at the knee and a little bit of side-to-side pivot at the ankles. But besides that, this thing for a big metal beast poses up an absolute storm. Anyway, for other poses, I will throw a little bit in the end right now. So yeah, that right there is it for the review, and I have to say this hits a sweet spot I never thought I needed hit, and that is the combination of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with a classic style with Mecha. Honestly, this is such a cool idea. The fact that this is a pilot figure, it's a giant mech of a turtle, and the fact that we're getting the whole crew and Shredder as well blows my mind. I highly recommend this. This is a top quality figure without a doubt. There's so many options, there's some great weapons, and the build, paint, and detail quality, everything is an absolute 10 out of 10. Highly recommended, and once again, thanks to Heat Boys for sending me on this sample. If you want to see more about it or grab one for yourself, I'll throw a link down there in the description. And as always, I will see you next time.